Thank you. Thanks for coming here and standing out in the rain. And thanks for all of you folks in North Carolina who are continuing this incredible struggle that never seems to end and are out there. I just was talking to some people who were arrested last night for the struggle against HB2, and let's honor them.
Yeah.
I bring you good wishes from the Ben&Jerry's Board of Directors and also from all our employees back in Vermont. We as a company stand in solidarity with you as we try to make the experiment of America become successful through the fight for a true democracy and enhancing the power of we the people. Is America possible is still a question. Over the last several years, we at Ben&Jerry's have been shaken, like so many others, by the tragic murders of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, and others. We understand the injustices of mass incarceration. We understand who first and more profoundly suffers from environmental racism. And we have come to understand that the election of Barack Obama did not end racism, nor did the election signal that we were a true democracy. And the fight goes on. And we come here humble and respectful to many in North Carolina who've worked so hard for so many years. And some of those names we know, and there are many we do not know. And we have so much more to learn. We also learned that ice cream here in Durham was part of a sit-in in 1957. And we're happy to bring ice cream back into the action. And lastly, we are deeply thankful to the young generation continuing the struggle through organizing such groups as Dream Defenders, Black Lives Matter, and United We Dream. And of course, Moral Mondays. You folks in North Carolina really rock. And with that, I would like to introduce the Reverend Barber, who you all know so well and has done so much here in North Carolina and around the country for pushing this fight for democracy and human rights for all. We thank him very much, and we are inspired by him, and I'm happy and honored to bring him to the stage. Thank you all very much.
Yeah. Woo.
So the only thing that got me out of my suit and my collar was ice cream. Yeah. And I want to thank Ben&Jerry for being here with us today and for this historic venture. And I want to say a few words, then I want to hear from them, and then I want to ask the plaintiffs. We've got some people that are going to come up, and then I think afterwards we're going to unveil. Is that right? Yeah, they're going to unveil.
Umbrella guy, come on, man.
As I think about this day, I walked this campus from 1981 to 1985 here at North Carolina Central University. And the founder of this institution was a preacher and a businessman and a scholar. In fact, he was a pharmacist. This school was the first state-supported HBCU in North Carolina. And before that, it actually went bankrupt. And it required benefactors to come alongside this institution and help it to be raised up. I want somebody to say what today's date is. Say it, everybody together. What's the date?
May 17th.
May 17th. We chose this date because in 1954, May 17th, the Supreme Court overturned the flawed principle, the racist principle of separate but equal. On May 17th. May 17, 1954, just like you're standing here, people would have been standing outside of the Supreme Court waiting on that decision. But you know, a lot of people don't know that Thurgood Marshall from time to time ran out of money. And a lot of people don't know that there was a lot of money, I like to call it mean money, that worked against the passage, that worked against the Brown versus Board of Education case. In fact, some of that money was Freddie Koch, who was the father of Charles and David Koch. And he was so mad that his money didn't work, and that Thurgood Marshall, black and Jewish and white lawyers were able to take crumbs and mount a powerful case against the legacy of separate but equal and win. 9 Supreme Court justices, 1 a former member of the Ku Klux Klan. Justice Warren, no one expected him to be where he was eventually in the case because of the way he had stood against Chinese immigrants in California. And yet Thurgood Marshall, Jewish and white and black lawyers, male and female, with some support from progressive business people and monies that came in from all over the country, a dime here, a nickel here, and a quarter here, were able to take on extremists. And they won. After the case was over, Freddie Koch then turned his mean money and mean agenda to calling for the impeachment of Justice Warren. He turned his mean money and mean agenda toward President Eisenhower, a Republican, because President Eisenhower also began to say that funding public education was a matter of national security. And he turned his mean money and his mean agenda against the civil rights movement. But thank God that in the midst of it all, God always has some moral money to help moral movements and righteous movements do good things. And so you had businessmen, for instance, like Antonio Walker, the insurance executive down in Mississippi. Without his help, Medgar Evers and the Mississippi NAACP would have not been able to function. Or you had people like Harry Belafonte, who would often gather actors and musicians and business people. In fact, he brought a core of them down to Selma to help make sure that the marchers from Selma to Montgomery had what they needed in order to move the movement. Thank God there's always been some moral money in the midst of meanness. And so we come here today with Ben&Jerry, and you know, I think about this, Nelson. We are seeing pornographic sums of money being spent today to support oppression and renewed racism and classism and xenophobia. It's incredible the amount of money that's being raised to attempt to take us backwards. It's strange to me. It's strange when I look at it. And just like there were those who supported regression in the past, there are those who support regression and extremism in the present. We have someone, I won't call their name, in this state alone that spent some $40 million some years ago to take over the North Carolina legislature. And just the other day, a report came out tying that money, y'all know who I'm talking about, first name A, last name starts with a P, connected to HB2. There's money in the mix. We've been raising the question. In fact, tomorrow we're releasing a letter to the Chamber of Commerce in North Carolina asking why is it that the Chamber of Commerce in South Carolina came out against their bill against attacking the LGBT community. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce came out against their bill. Why is it that the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce has not come out? Could it be that since the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce doesn't support living wages? In fact, we heard one of their leaders say that we really don't need living wages, that businesses would pay more money if they could find skilled workers. As though the people that are already working are not skilled and that they deserve a living wage. So could it be? Could it be? We're going to raise that question. But we know, what we do know is there's always this trail of money that supports regressivism. And so when we look at North Carolina right now, we've seen this legislature say that the way to a great North Carolina is to deny Medicaid expansion for 500,000 North Carolinians. No. They claim that the way to a great North Carolina is to deny fully funding public education. No. And cut public education in North Carolina till now we are lower than Mississippi. No. They have used their money and their power to say that the way to a great North Carolina is to deny unemployment to long-term unemployment people and deny living wages. They are trying to tell us that the way to a great North Carolina is to deny immigrant rights and deny women's rights and deny LGBTQ rights. They are saying to us that the way to a great North Carolina is to use their money and their power to belittle and malign Muslims and people of other religions. They are saying that the way they've used money, they've taken our money and spent it to sue us over voting. Have you ever heard anything? They're using our money to take our voting rights from us. Millions of dollars of money. And that's not even counting all of the false ads and other things. And they are arguing that the best way for North Carolina to be great is to deny voters' rights and to suppress the vote. And if you really want to be great as a state, make sure you create apartheid redistricting. And then if you really want to be great, make sure everybody can get a gun easier than they can vote. And they've had money behind this. Well, we've had a movement. We've had a shoestring movement. And they used to call us money and borrow money. That was the insult. They claimed that the only reason folk out here were marching and going to jail is because somehow we were getting all these kickbacks from the government. They didn't understand that the reason we march is because we follow God and not mammon. The reason we stand is because we believe in the Constitution, and you can't buy us off with 30 pieces of silver. And we thank God that we have stood long enough that now even some business leaders understand that bad political policy is bad business. And so they've decided if the mean agenda has some money, then the moral movement needs some money. And I want this company to know that as you unveil empowerment, this flavor, and people purchase it, and you help fund these movements, we don't need a lot. If we just get something, it'll help us march a little more, it'll help us fight a little more, it'll help us register voters a little more, it'll help us get people to the polls a little more. And so I'm glad that years ago, we had to sit down at the counter to try to get ice cream. But now ice cream has come to us to help us counter all of this oppression that's going on. I'm glad. I can't eat any of the ice cream. I'm sorry, because I'm on a special diet now. I'm trying to get it slim and trim for the fight. But so I'll give my cone to Courtney Patterson. But I want y'all to buy some ice cream. So we can heat up this movement right here in North Carolina, so that we can move and do the kinds of things that we need to do. And thank God, I told y'all the other day, I'm an old Pentecostal congregation. I don't know what I am. I just love the Lord. But whatever it is, I know this, Joyce. I know this. If you hang in there, and I want to give special credit to Nelson Johnson and Joyce Johnson, who first introduced us to Ben&Jerry. Now, I want y'all to understand, these elders in the movement and called me to a meeting. But I'm so glad, and hold up just a minute, Lord. I'm so glad that when you do what is right, if you hang in there long enough, the Lord will make a way somehow. He'll send you some help. Let me introduce our friend with Ben&Jerry, who's coming to the podium now. Let's give him a big round of applause.
What an honor to be up here on the stage with Reverend Barber. And we're honored also to be here today with Rosenald Eaton and so many others who have led this fight for justice. You know, the history of our country is stained with the discrimination against those who are not white or of a certain gender or sexual orientation. And yet our country shines with a history of righting those wrongs. But these two laws are giant leaps backward in the struggle for a more inclusive and just America. The biggest fraud of all is the very idea of voter fraud.
That's right.
It's a problem that doesn't exist. There have only been 2 cases of it since the year 2000. So it's not about voter ID. It's just a thinly veiled tactic to throw up roadblocks in front of young people and poor people who happen to be disproportionately black and Latino to get to the voting booth. North Carolina had a great voting law. It made it easier for working people to vote by having a long early voting period, by having same-day registration, a provision for out-of-precinct ballots, and pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds. This voter suppression law gets rid of all that. So, why should an ice cream company care about this stuff? Why should anybody speak out if someone else is getting screwed? Because it isn't just. It isn't fair. It isn't law. As Archbishop Tutu said, you cannot be neutral in situations of injustice.
That's right.
If an elephant is standing on the tail of a mouse, you can claim that you're neutral, but the mouse will not much appreciate your neutrality.
That's right. That's right.
Or as Martin Luther King said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal.
Wow.
North Carolina is justly proud of being first in flight. Let's not let it be marred by being first in discrimination. By releasing this flavor here today, we're hoping to make North Carolina first in the empowerment of its citizens.
Hello, I'm Jerry. Very nice to see you all. How lucky can one person be to be standing up on stage with Reverend Barber, Joyce and Nelson, and Ben!
And I was truly honored 3 weeks ago when Ben and I were able to be arrested, along with Reverend Barber, on the steps of the Capitol building, along with hundreds of other people protesting big money in politics. And Ben&Jerry's step here today is just another stand in that big march. Ben&Jerry's is at its best when it uses its voice to talk about injustice and is also smart enough to partner with local groups on the ground who are actually doing the work.
All right.
And Ben&Jerry's will be working here in North Carolina with North Carolina NAACP, with North Carolina PIRG, with Common Cause, among a coalition of other groups. And the campaign will be centering around two issues, both the policy issue of reauthorizing the Civil Rights Act and the actual issue of registering voters. The company will be doing it both nationally and in North Carolina, and we are happy to play our small part among the groups that are doing such incredible work. Thanks again for having us, and I just can't tell you how fortunate I feel to be here. Thank you.
So what we're going to do now in just a second is we're going to actually unveil, and then you will hear from some of the plaintiffs. Let us be clear, over 50 years after Selma, we have less voting rights today than we had then. This campaign is about restoring the Voting Rights Act, immediate passage of the Voting Rights Amendment Act. Secondly, in North Carolina, we have the worst voter suppression laws in the country. This unveiling, these resources help us continue to fight in the courts. We've been fast-tracked to the 4th Circuit, but it also helps us do voter education, voter registration, and voter mobilization. We're coordinating with 3,000 faith communities, 4,500 volunteers. Our goal is to fight in the courts and at the ballot box, and to make sure that we demand that the unabridged right to vote is never, never taken for granted. And we are committed with Ben&Jerry and so many others to wage this. This is our time. This is our vote. This is our Selma. And we have to do it now. Say that with me. This is our time.
This is our time.
This is our vote.
Our vote.
And this is our Selma.
Our Selma.
So Jay, are we ready? Are we ready, man? Are we ready? Are we ready? Come on, man. Come on, let's.
Everybody, put your hand on it, sir. All right.
Nelson, you got a hand?
All right. Come on. Whip it up.
All right. Say it with me, say empowerment. Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Vote.
Vote.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
March.
March.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Stand.
Stand.
Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Raise your voices.
Raise your voices.
Empowerment.
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 This is our time.
Our time.
This is our vote.
Our vote.
This is
our
Selma.
Our Selma.
We will not fail. Empowerment.
Empowerment.
Right now.
Right now.
Right here.
Right here.
Right now.
Right now.
Right here.
Right here.
Now would you please hear from members, some of the plaintiffs, if they would come. Where's Tyler? Brother Tyler, I think we have Dr. Hall is here, Dr. Hawkins is here. Come on up. Is Miss Rosanelle here? Miss Rose, let me say this before you move in honor. Our plaintiff, our oldest plaintiff, she could not be here today. She's over 90 years old. 95 years old. She told me one day in court, she said, Reverend Barber, they think I'm going to die, but I'm not going anywhere till we win this case. She said, I fought too hard. This lady had to recite from memory the preamble preamble to the Constitution to somebody who probably couldn't read themselves. She had to do a literacy test. She registered over 5,000 people to vote in her lifetime. She had the Klan burn crosses in front of her yard, and she was affected negatively by the voter suppression law passed by our legislature and signed by the governor. She's still on the battlefield. She got a little sick today. Would you all pray for her and believe that we will be? Now, June 21st, come on, Dr. Hall and Reverend Hall. June 21st, we're going to be in Richmond. Our case has been fast-tracked to the 4th Circuit, and we're going to be taking buses to Richmond to fill up the courtroom on that day. Say June 21st. Let me introduce now Dr. Hall, and then following him, Reverend Jimmy Hawkins, whose entire church, the Covenant Presbyterian Church, is a plaintiff in our case.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Barber. First of all, as a member of the faculty here at North Carolina Central University, I want to welcome you to the beautiful campus of North Carolina Central University. Let's give the campus. Yeah. Woo. And as you're walking around these hallowed grounds, you probably feel the fight for justice that has taken place on this campus in the city of Durham and in the state of North Carolina throughout the years. So again, welcome to our campus. When we talk about voting, I'm a political scientist. In fact, my office is in this building right here, though you can't come by because I'm not there. But voting is so critical, of course, to what American democracy is. And there have been fights throughout the history of our country to prevent people from participating in the franchise, from having the franchise, from voting, from playing a role in the decision-making process of this country, and others have been fighting to keep that right away from people, especially people of color and the poor. I mean, just think about it, what we've had to go through. The grandfather clause, white primaries, poll taxes, literacy tests, limited registration periods, single state party systems, evasion, economic reprisal, terror, fraud, corruption, violence, mayhem, murder. But guess what? We're still here. We're still here, and we're still voting, and we're still fighting. And they are still fighting. The enemies of justice are still fighting. Because, of course, we went through a period of vote dilution, using packing, cracking, and stacking in order to dilute the power to vote. Now we're in the period of voter suppression. Voter suppression. I mean, that term should not be anything that any American ever has to use with regard to our democracy. But unfortunately, the people who are supposed to represent us are doing just that. Limiting early voting, right? Voter ID, all the things that we've already talked about. And of course, we know that when you suppress the vote, when people don't participate as they should, it leads to what we have now, which I would call the politics of the absurd. Because it's absurd not to allow people to have a quality, equal education. It's absurd not to allow people to have health care when it should be available to them. It's absurd when we do not have adequate housing for people. And so we urge people to participate in the process, to join this movement. And it's going to be a big movement. It's not going to be a Durham movement, not a Greensboro movement, not a North Carolina movement. It's going to be a national movement, and to some extent, an international movement.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
To participate and to join. And once again, welcome to North Carolina Central University. And I want some ice cream.